Donald Trump says the moderator of Monday's presidential debate should be just a moderator and not fact check. Clinton and Trump are both managing expectations ahead of Monday's debate. But on Thursday, Trump suggested that Lester Holt, he's the moderator on Monday, he suggested that Lester Holt is under pressure to be harder on Trump than on Clinton.
What would you like to see, a moderator or a fact checker?
Well, I think he has to be a moderator. I mean, you're debating somebody, and if she makes a mistake or if I make a mistake, we'll take each other on. I think you have to have somebody that's just lets them argue it out. And, I think there's a lot of pressure on Lester. I think Lester's a very good person, a very good man. I think that there's a lot of pressure on him because of Matt Lauer. When I had the town hall, I guess you'd call it, or the forum last week with Hillary, it was, I did well, and I had tough questions, but the polls all had hers taking a drubbing in that one. Now, I will say they went after Matt Lauer. I've never seen anything like it, and I think my questions were harder than her questions, if you want to know the truth. And a lot of pressure is being put on Lester Holt. And, it's a Bobby Knight type pressure with the refs, okay? Bobby Knight would go after the refs, and that's what they're doing with Lester Holt, which is, I think, very, very unfair. And a lot of people are watching to see whether or not he succumbs to that pressure.
Yeah. Ed O'Keefe is a reporter with The Washington Post, and he joins me now. So, Ed, Trump seems to be warning Lester Holt. It's very unclear exactly what he's trying to say here, because I don't know that he has any kind of information that would lead him to believe that Lester Holt is going to be one way or another with either of them.
I think he's just trying to get inside their heads, and he's trying to get inside Hillary Clinton's head, and frankly, the Clinton campaign's been doing the same exact thing. You'll notice that her communications director yesterday at one point was suggesting that they're concerned that Trump will get easier questions than she will because the stakes or the expectations are so different for them given their professional experiences. Look, this is all about just setting the table, setting expectations in advance. If I were Lester Holt, Anderson Cooper, our buddy Elaine Quijano, and Martha Raddatz and Chris Wallace, I'd stay away from the television and the Twitter until you're done with this thing and just focus in on writing your questions and being prepared. But I think Trump has a point, which is, ultimately, I think at this point, the voters just want to see these two talk to each other. And he should be there to sort of guide the conversation and ask a few questions, and we'll see. But, part of the frustration, I think a lot in our business and a lot of Trump's critics have also, is that he does say things sometimes that are totally inaccurate and doesn't necessarily get called for it, whether it's in a campaign speech or in some kind of an interview. So, some of that criticism perhaps is justified. But here I think he's just, again, trying to get inside their head a little bit.
We should note, Ed, that Clinton's aides say that they're concerned that the moderators might lower their bar of the questions to suit the candidate in front of them. Our polls show that there are very few voters who haven't already formed an opinion of the candidate. So what's the role of the debates in this cycle?
Well, I think, for those few people in these few states that haven't made up their mind, it will be critical. And I think it's also an opportunity to really get a sense of how either of these two people would deal with adversity, frankly, because they are facing off against their lead critic and their lead opponent. And, it might give people an opportunity to see how they might, deal with foreign leaders they disagree with, or deal with the opposition party should they have to start negotiating on legislation next year. So I think it's a critical element of the elections. It always is. It is even more so this year because, of course, we have such an established television figure in Mr. Trump participating, and Mrs. Clinton, who is not as strong in this regard, but I think many of her supporters want to see her finally go face-to-face, mano with Trump, and try to level some attacks.
All right, so Trump is defending claims that he made on Thursday morning where he said that drugs were partially to blame for the violence in Charlotte. What is he trying to say about this?
That's a good question, Vlad. I think, he has made all sorts of claims about the violence that and the real, the disunity and the concerns that people have expressed across the country about relations between law enforcement and these communities across the country. Drugs is something he's discussed before. It was discussed, of course, a lot in New Hampshire, given that state has struggled with the heroin crisis. It's something that resonates in Ohio and other places that are dealing with it as well, that remain intensely focused on during this campaign, but it's not entirely clear what he was talking about here. And as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Vlad, we haven't seen any evidence that the person who was shot there in Charlotte was under the influence of drugs at the time, or there was any reason to believe he was. So, you know, it's hard to know exactly what he meant.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scratching their heads about that. Ed O'Keefe, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
Take care.